Developing and emerging economies, particularly here in Asia, are confronted with the challenge of not only having to provide basic energy services to billions who lack access currently, but also at the same time engage in this global shift towards low-carbon energy systems. To make sense of it all, I'm joined by Francesco La Camera. He is Director General of the International Renewable Energy Agency. Francesco, good to have you with us.
My pleasure.
The UN Climate Summit, COP28, is coming up. The United Nations has said that the world will not meet its targets in cutting carbon emissions. Should we be worried? Should we be afraid?
We should be worried, and we should focus on how to overcome the difficulties that we are facing. COP28 will be critically important because there will be this stock-taking exercise. And as we see, we are not on track on the pathway to limit the increased temperature 1.5 at the end of the century. So this is the fact. We are not on track. So the COP has to come not only with this assessment, but also to build a narrative that makes possible hope that the 1.5 remain at reach.
Okay. Sultan Al-Jaber, who is the president-designate at COP28. Now, he's pressuring oil and gas companies to sign up for this so-called Global Decarbonization Alliance. More than 20 companies of the oil and gas industry that emit about 20% of the world's emissions have signed up. Is that a hopeful development?
I think that when we talk about any transition, we have to consider that we have to work all the sector for this. So we cannot exclude the oil and gas company. They have the capital, they have the engineering, they have the worker assets. So we have to bring them into the fight against climate change, making the energy transition going faster. So in this sense, I think that the initiative is a good one when the oil and gas companies sincerely are putting commitments to decrease their CO2 emission and go for a clean energy system.
Okay. Let's talk about investments. A recent report by your agency estimates an additional 35 trillion, not billion, trillion dollars needed by 2030 to help keep temperatures at 1.5 above pre-industrial levels. Now that's quite a staggering amount. Help us make sense of that much money. Where is it going?
I think last year we broke a new record in investment in energy transition, 1.3 trillion. The fact that this decade is very important because it's at the end of the decade that we realize if we are able to decrease the 43% of CO2 emission to be on track. This means that we have and part of this 1.3, around 500-600 billion are for renewable energy. So our calculation is that we have to quadruple the investment in the energy transition, so going for 5.2, and this making 7 years more or less 35. But we are also more important, triple the installed capacity of renewables. Because if you want the CO2 emission decline without creating disruption in the market, we have created supply for substitute the one that we are losing. So the 1,000 gigawatt per year from now to 2030 at the sense of what is needed to get the 43% of CO2 reduction.
This year, for the first time, investment in solar energy has exceeded oil and gas. That's a hopeful sign.
Just think about this, that when we talk about new installed capacity, the last year, 83% of new installed capacity was renewables. And only the 70% was all gas and nuclear combined. So the trend is clear. So, as I always like to say, it's not where we are going. Where we're going is clear. The direction of travel is there. We are moving to a new energy system, largely based on renewables, complemented by hydrogen, mainly green hydrogen, and the sustainable use of biomass. So it's not this in question. The question is the speed and the scale of this transformation.
Okay. The big oil companies have raked in record profits last year because of the war in Ukraine. This year, because of the Middle East conflict, crude oil prices have also had a risk premium attached to it. The big oil companies say that investment in opening up more refining plants, in oil and gas exploration, that's still essential. But does that mean that if they invest more in these areas, that they don't put enough money into renewables?
Investment in that area will be stranded asset shortly. So we understand that for ensuring a slow decline of CO2 emission, we need some investment, but not at the scale that you mentioned. So we have to try to have this going down, going smoothly. At the same time, the only hopes that we have in this decade to reduce the emission as the science is asking us, because our Polar Star should be the IPCC report. We say 43% less in 2030 if you want to keep alive the 1.5. For doing that, you have to decrease. So investment, large investment in oil and gas will be the stranded asset of the future. So this is the reason for going faster into renewables.
Okay. You speak of renewables, the future. Hydrogen has been touted as the next fuel. But why has it been so slow to the low carbon party, as it were?
So first, again, the future will be dominated by renewables. Hydrogen will be a complement. We estimate 14% of energies to be supplied by green hydrogen in 2050. But what is important is that there are sectors, the so-called heavy sectors, that cannot be electrified. So we need a clean fuel for those steel, cement company. In that place, hydrogen could be very, very important. And to promote hydrogen, we need to create the demand. So as the policies that make possible for companies shift to the use of green hydrogen as fuel.
So by, say, 2030, what would be the ideal mix between fossil fuel, LNG, renewables? What would that look like?
The scenario is that it will change. So we will have to have more renewables than oil and gas. And then in 2050, it's just to reverse the share we have today in the market between a fossil fuel and renewables. So I'm going more than 2/3 for renewables and the other for the fossil fuel part.
Okay. Now, one aspect about going green that doesn't get mentioned much is critical minerals. We're talking lithium, nickel, rare mineral elements needed for energy storage and installation. Competition between China and the US has caused this to put the supply chain in focus. This risk of resource nationalism, is that going to be a deterrent for the green transition? Is it going to make supplies more costly?
So for the people that is doing this interview, I suggest look at one of our reports. It's called Geopolitics of Mineral or Critical Mineral. First of all, mineral or rare earth, they are not rare. They are, from a geological point of view, they are more or less elsewhere. The problem is to have the mining to be conducted in respect of the environment and in respect of the civil rights. Concerning the possibility of competition, we say that always, if we decentralize the supply chain, this will make the system more resilient to shocks. So what we are insisting as ARENA, that first we have to decentralize the supply chain, and not only, but also building the manufacturing for the solar, for the blades, in the place where the minerals are, so that the developed country that detain much of this reserve can also have a more high share of the added value. And this, increase our hope that the new energy system put also more equality and less inequalities in the world, at least.
Okay. How would you urge Southeast Asian governments and businesses to view the green energy transition as an opportunity, rather to take a more opportunistic approach rather than see it as a policy initiative?
You know, we have launched the occasion of the last, as a ministerial, our outlook for Southeast Asia. Just give me a number that is the worker. The number of jobs will increase dramatically. So socially, going to a rapid and instant transition is a must if you want to have more employment, a good employer in the market, and also this will have a positive impact on the GDP. So renewables are not good only because they are clean. They are good because they're less costly for producing solar, and they are also the one that may have a positive impact on jobs and good quality jobs, and a positive impact on on GDP and also on energy security, because decentralization creates resilience.
Okay. Final question. The rollout to green energy, renewables, what are the main hurdles currently right now? Infrastructure?
We have our narrative, We say that I'm trying to explain why, if renewables are the most convenient way to produce power, is progressing but not at speed needed. We have identified three main structural barriers. One is the physical infrastructure. It means that we need grid that are interconnected, they are flexible, they are balanced. And we also need the sea trade, the land trade. So we need creating the possibility to trade, and this means infrastructure. Then we have also the policies and environment. So we need to put policies for example, demand for hydrogen, fossil fuels, for subsidy for fossil fuel to be off. We design a market that is based not anymore on the cost marginal to make the price, but on long-term contract. And then we need strengthening the institutional capacity and creating also the worker skill, because we can move jobs and we will have a net added job, but we need that the workforce is skilled. So we need capacity, we need training.
So it does sound like green transition is still a long road ahead.
Is ahead, but should be short, should be not long.
Okay.
We have to do now.
Okay. Francesco, it's very good to talk to you. And that was Francesco La Camera. He is the Director General at the International Renewable Energy Agency.